What's up, guys? Welcome to the Being Beautifully Honest podcast and channel. Thanks so much for being here, for being subscribed if you are. If you're not, go ahead and hit that button. And if you're listening to this on YouTube while you're at it, hit that like button. It's like walking into the room and hitting that light switch. We just want to go ahead and brighten up the place. So let's get into this podversation / reality chat. All right, guys. So Peter Thomas, Cynthia Bailey's ex, and I'm quite sure she gets annoyed anytime there is some news headline that comes out about Peter, because they will forever connect him to Cynthia Bailey, because they will put in the headline, Cynthia Bailey's ex. Cynthia Bailey, formerly of the Real Housewives of Atlanta's ex, Peter Thomas. And I'm quite sure she's like, look, he owes me money too. So like, why am I in it? Like Nene Leakes has famously said before. But listen, guys, he just recently did an interview on Carlos King's podcast. And for those of you who have been on my platform, you've heard me say, Carlos King, it's hard for me to listen to him, although he's kind of catching up with Tasha K in terms of the interviews. He's getting the interviews, but his voice is just hard for me to really listen to for a long period of time. So, with that being said, I listened to most of the interview, and he just confirmed a lot of things that a lot of people already felt and knew. But I want to play a clip because, he's got all of these stories out about his Bar One restaurant. I've heard that the Bar One in Baltimore is closed. I don't know how true that is. I haven't seen anything that's come out to confirm that is the truth or not. But I've heard that the Bar One in Baltimore is closed, is shut down. You know that story that went viral about the employee that put him on blast and the restaurant on blast, saying that she hasn't been paid. She's owed, well over $1,000 in pay. And then his ex-manager of, I believe, the Miami restaurant, she did an interview, sit down with Tasha K on her platform. And I did discuss that as well, because I had questions with regards to a company like his, the size that it is. Why in the world would he be writing checks to people and not doing direct deposit? I am a business owner and I do have employees. I don't have as many as he has. And thankfully, I don't have as many locations as he has either. But I'm not in the restaurant industry either. But I know people in the restaurant industry. Payroll is direct deposit these days. Even my small company, I have a few employees. I don't have as many as I used to, thank God. But I always did direct deposit from the first employee that I ever hired, simply because I did not want to have the hassle of, trying to write checks myself, them going to the bank, cashing it, not saying the money wouldn't be in the account for them to cash it. It just was easier for me to have a payroll company handle it. And that's what I mean by that. So if he is writing checks, what that means is he didn't have a payroll company, and he either had an in-house accountant that was handling the books, handling the payroll, and just writing checks out to employees, and then hoping they have all of the money in the account by the time those people's checks are cashed. And then the money, by the time the bank that they cash their check at is requesting the funds from the company's bank, that they would have enough money in their account to cover it. And that's what I mean. I didn't understand that. So I talked about that in a previous conversation. But yeah, I digress. I was just trying to figure out what in the world is it with him not having a payroll company and having the payroll company handle payroll. And payroll companies, they do direct deposit. They're not writing checks out to employees. Okay. So that's what I gained from it. I felt like, well, they didn't have the money in the account, and that's why they were doing it that way. Just my opinion. Anyway, just a couple of days ago, the news was reported that he was being evicted from the Miami location. The story is that Peter Thomas trying to save Miami restaurant from eviction. Bar One Miami is on the brink of eviction, but Peter Thomas isn't going down without a fight. And here we go. It says, the ex-husband of Real Housewives of Atlanta star Cynthia Bailey is waist deep in litigation over unpaid rent. And of course, Peter has opened a slew of clubs and restaurants over the year. On RHOA, we saw him launch Bar One Atlanta, and we follow him as he grew the brand across the East Coast. And then they have at the bottom, Bar One to Bar None. Peter first leased out the space for Bar One Miami in 2018. According to the landlord, Bentley Bay Retail, Peter has consistently had issues paying the rent over the years. Eventually, the unpaid debt piled up to $270,000. Peter and the landlord agreed to pay it off in installments, but the deal would be terminated if any checks were returned. The landlord claimed 5 of Peter's checks bounced since setting that payment agreement, thus voiding their agreement. So, in the lawsuit that was filed against him, they're claiming that he owes $422,000 just in back rent, sales tax, and utility charges. They want him out ASAP, but as you know, with any eviction, whether it's commercial or residential, they can't just kick them out. You have to go through a court process. So we don't know what the end is going to be for that, but he's claiming that he paid the back rent on the restaurant already. I don't know if that's going to really mean anything because they have proof that he's bounced checks, and the new agreement that they had said that if any checks bounce or are returned, then it voids their agreement. So it wouldn't mean anything even if he paid the back rent because he would still owe the money. So I don't think he gets that. And that's the part that's just really making him look crazy out here when it comes to his business, because it's been a consistent issue when it comes to him and these businesses that we have seen of him since he's been on the Real Housewives of Atlanta. I mean, the first season that he was on there with Cynthia, he had the Uptown, I think it was called Uptown Restaurant and Lounge, and it was shutting down in that first season. They were getting married and they didn't have the money. It was just a lot going on. So anyway, okay, it was either closed the first or second season they were on. I can't really remember, trying to remember and recall, but that was so many years ago. But we've just seen so many openings and closures with Peter. To be honest, you can't really keep up. But I want to play this clip because, listen, as you know, Carlos is shady and Peter can be shady too. A lot of people have been calling him Patricia, saying that he wanted to be the one holding the peach. He wanted to be the one holding the peach. But listen, I'm kind of even more so now looking at him like, yeah, he really wanted to be the peach holder because he made it known that he was the one that pushed Cynthia up into doing this because she didn't really want to do it. She didn't really want to do it. He said that she didn't really want to do it. Carlos said that, yeah, we had to film her several times because, to be honest with you, she wasn't that interesting, but you made her more interesting. And the reason being is because not saying everyone had to be like Nene, because everyone is not Nene, where they're just loud, outgoing, boisterous, doesn't care who they offend, don't care what they say, whatever. That's not everybody's character and personality, so I got that. But she didn't really want to do that at all. She'd pretty much living her life low-key. Yeah, not uber celebrity type famous, but definitely a fashion model to be contended with. Like, she's been on the cover of magazines and she's done her thing. Like, absolutely. But that's what gave him relevance. So when this opportunity came about, I believe, because he was already living down in Atlanta, he had her move down there with him to make this work and make it make sense. So he shared something in this interview. He shared a lot in the interview, so I'll put a link to it in the description box. But I'm going to play this clip.
And that started with you and I talking.
I definitely think so. There's so much more dynamics when you put the husband in play. You know what I'm saying? More men and women would watch the show together. Before, it was just a lot of women watching the show. And the ratings, we could clearly see how the ratings jump when the three of us got into it. You know what I'm saying? Got into the show and you start showing the guys more. And that makes a lot of the girls upset too, because we were taking camera time away from them. You know what I'm saying? That's why Nene told me to stay out of woman business. Why? Because I'm taking more camera time. Down with me, that's why. You know what I'm saying? I got some shit I want to promote too.
All right, did you just hear what he said? He said that he has some blank that he wants to promote too. Listen, we know that people get on these shows and the purpose of them is to propel them so that they can actually have a platform, because most of these people, not all, but most of these people that get on these housewives shows, you know, except for the likes of Candy, but it definitely helped Candy. Let's just be clear. She definitely was able to build her brand and her businesses being on this show. Absolutely. But she definitely was a celebrity before being on the Real Housewives of Atlanta. But most of these people come on these shows and they really don't have that, but they will put on this persona and facade as if they do, but they use it to help them to grow. And, you know, it's fine. Many people have done it. But in the beginning of the interview, Peter was talking about the fact that Cynthia, she really already had a lot going on, and he included himself in that as well. So he was like, you know, unlike a lot of these people that get on these shows and they don't really have anything going for themselves, they really are not doing much. And then they get on the show and act like they do, and then they start doing it. And honestly, that is kind of true when it comes to other people. But had it not been for Cynthia Bailey, we already know this, he would not be as known as he is now. Of course, he would not have been able to be a housewife per se without being attached to a woman on the show, but this was his opportunity. So it really was him pushing Cynthia. He was the catalyst behind Cynthia being on the show. So in all honesty, it's kind of looking like a lot of people were right. Peter wanted to be the peach holder. He wanted to be Patricia. And maybe that gave him the right to speak more so, because he was really the housewife. He was really the housewife more so than Cynthia was, because you can remember a lot of the arguments that were had and a lot of the things that he said, and even on the reunion stage and a lot of the things that were said. He even did an interview. So there was, I think it was maybe the second season that they were on. After the first season that Cynthia and Peter were on, Peter did an interview with a magazine, and he was talking about Phaedra and saying that he didn't like Phaedra, and and Phaedra didn't like it. And at the time, you know, Apollo and they bumped heads about it, and they were about to get into a fight at Kim's and Kroy's baby shower. I don't know if you all remember that, but that's how they started getting their interaction with each other. And yeah, it did get a lot of views and ratings and all of that stuff like that. And listen, Phaedra is a lawyer. I don't really care for a lot of lawyers. So, you know, he said some things in the interview about Phaedra that whether you like Peter or not, you can't say that he's lying when it comes to that. But anyway, I wanted to talk about that because he clearly put it out there. He came on the show with the help of Cynthia because he pushed and prompted her to be on the show. Not saying that even if he prompted her to try out that she would have made it. Thankfully, she did. But he definitely was the catalyst behind her being more interesting on the show, because Carlos was working with the Real Housewives of Atlanta back during that time. And Carlos likes the mess. And Peter is messy. And that was something that got Carlos's blood, you know, really pumping, and he loved it. And it did make for good television, but for those ladies that were on the show, it definitely was something that was annoying for them, especially people like Nene, when Peter checked her at that mansion party that Kenya was supposed to be doing in honor of Nene's charity event or charity connection or whatever it was. I can't remember all of the details about it. If you can remember, you let me know in the comment section. But yeah, he said it on this interview, he said, I got some shit I want to promote too. So that has been the entire reason for Cynthia even being on the Real Housewives of Atlanta. Yes, it's definitely benefited her in the long run. But ultimately, had it not been for Peter, she would not be a part of the show. But he saw an opportunity and he took it. And with his uptown restaurant that he already had in Atlanta at the time, it already wasn't doing well. So it was something that he was going to use to help save the company. And then he just was hopping from one thing to one thing. He had Uptown, he had Bar One, he had that closed down in Atlanta. He was saying that the landlord wanted to do something, and I think the building was going into foreclosure, but he was up on his rent, so it wasn't his fault, and all this other stuff. And then he had got a location, didn't tell Cynthia about it. He showed her the location after he got it, and then he said, yeah, this is going to be a new coffee shop. It's going to be called Peter's Brew. It's like, and she was like, what are you doing? Like, you didn't even discuss this with me. He was just using Cynthia and her connection to the show to grow his brand. And that's how he's been able to get all of these Bar One locations, in my personal opinion. Obviously, it's not going well, but because of the connections that he's made, he's been able to get investors, so to speak. And I don't know how those investments work. I don't know if those investments are just like loans that you give to your family that you know, well, they're never going to pay me back. So yeah, I'm calling it a loan, but in actuality, it's just a gift because I know I'm not going to get the money back. Because it just, every time you look, it's just something controversial with him, whether it's personal or business. And it just doesn't seem like he knows business very well. And he needs to just, in my personal opinion, get out of the restaurant industry, period. But yeah, I heard that. That's one of the things that stuck out to me when he said in the interview that when Nene was getting upset with him because he was getting so much camera time, and he was like, shit, I got some stuff I want to promote too. It's like, okay, yeah, you said it out loud. Most people already knew that. So it's not a revelation, but you sit him down, have an interview with him, and it's amazing the stuff that will come out. But yeah, he definitely has a lot to say, but it doesn't seem like he has a lot to pay because he still allegedly owes employees. He's allegedly getting evicted from the restaurants that he has. I don't know what the next steps are going to be. I really don't know. So you guys let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Thank you so much for being here, liking and subscribing. I'm Beth, just being beautifully honest. So until the next time, I just wanted to keep it brief, beautiful, and I'm going to say bye.